Hello everybody and welcome to a video on my channel. My name is Imperatempus and I've been trading on Roblox for quite a long time now, since around 2012 when the trading system came out. I was an active LMaDer for quite some time, and now I've noticed there's a lot of new people coming into the trading community, so I decided I'd make this video to basically clear some things up, give you guys 5 really good tips to really get into trading, and it's just stuff that you need to know. If this video does well, I'll make more in the future on the same kind of topic, so let me know below and also give me a like and subscription if you do enjoy this type of content. And let's get into the video. So I'm going to be structuring this video as a top 5. Basically, I'm going to be going through just 5 really important tips that every beginner is going to want to know for trading. So we're going to start off with the number 5 tip, which is upgrading and downgrading. So you probably heard this quite a lot if you're brand new to the scene. A lot of people tell you how to upgrade and downgrade and how that's the main way of gaining a lot of value early, and that's actually pretty true. Upgrading and downgrading is basically where you take a big item and then trade it for a bunch of smaller items that add up to the same value or usually a bit more depending on the demand. The reason people are able to make value with this is because when you trade a big item down to a bunch of smaller items, you basically are taking on extra risk because the smaller items have a higher chance to be volatile and change their price frequently. So by trading to a bunch of smaller items, you're basically taking on more risk, which means you deserve more value. Once you've downgraded your items into a bunch of smaller items and hopefully for more value than what your previous item was worth, what you can do is then upgrade your items, which is basically just where you take those items and then slowly turn them into one bigger item. Usually what people do is they take 2 items and trade it for 1 item. That way they don't lose as much value because there's not as much of a downgrade going on, and then they just do that until they end up with 1 big item. The amount of overpay that you can expect for downgrading your items differs on how much the item that you're trading is actually worth in the first place. Like for example, items that are worth a lot more, you can probably get a larger amount of value out of a downgrade, but for items that are worth less, usually you're only going to get a few hundred Robux, maybe 1,000 Robux if you're lucky, worth of a downgrade. If you ignore all other factors, this is basically the main way that people use to gain value in trading, but there is a lot of other ways you can do it, through investing or through getting items that are about to rise, stuff like that, but this is usually the general main way that people actually gain value. The number 4 tip that I have for you is to leave some trades inbound. Sometimes you're going to get trades that are inbound that aren't necessarily bad, and they aren't also necessarily good. The reason that you want to leave some of these inbound is because the values can change a lot, and if you have one of these inbound and one of the values of an item changes, making the trade more profitable, then you can go ahead and go back and accept the trade. Some people find this to be sort of a scummy thing to do, but it's kind of a risk that you take when you're sending trades, that people can leave them inbound and then just accept them whenever they want. Plus people can decline the trades whenever they want as well, so that's another reason why I don't personally think it's a scummy thing to do. The trades that you want to leave inbound are going to be ones with items that could potentially rise in the future. Some items like Valkyrie helms or Ice Valkyrie helms or some other really high demand items, those tend to change value very frequently, so if you leave them inbound, you could have a chance of those rising quite a bit and being able to accept the trade later. Obviously, you don't want to leave every trade inbound. Some of them are going to just be really bad trades that you're never going to want to take, that are just super low value that you just are not going to make any profit on. Those ones you're going to want to just straight up decline. But for some of them that are a little bit more in the middle, you can try to leave those inbound and see if you can make profit at a later date. Keep in mind that trades expire after 4 days, so make sure that you accept or decline the trades before those 4 days are up. There's also sort of a sub-tip number 4, and that's basically if you own a rare item, that's an item that has low demand, that's usually under 100 in quantity, then what you can do is leave the trades inbound and use them to proof the items, which is basically where you just take those trades and then send them off to Rollymons value changers in an album of pictures. And then what you can do is use those proofs in order to get the rare item that you have valued at a higher value. I'm going to be making a more specific video on proofing items in the future, so if you're still confused, then just wait for that. The number 3 tip that I have for you guys is to check Rollymons frequently, both the site and the Discord server. The reason for this is because this is going to allow you to always have in the know on all of the value changes and also on all of the discussion updates and the wrap updates of certain items. It's important to know all this information because sometimes you're going to get trades that have an item that's currently on the discussion board, and basically what that means is when they're discussing an item, they are potentially choosing to raise the item in value or lower the item in value. So if you know if the item is up on the discussion board, it's going to really work in your favor for when you are accepting or declining certain trades. For lower cost items, usually between 1 and 200,000 Robux in value, what you're going to be able to use in Rollymons Discord is actually their wrap update thing, which is basically where they just post items that have their wrap increased or decreased after items sell. And what you can do with that information is find out if the item is going to be valued at a higher value using their wrap chart, which is on screen right now. And basically what you can do is just watch that very closely, look for items that are potentially going to be risen pretty soon on Rollymons as a website, and just basically keep a good eye on that. For rare items, it's also kind of important to watch the rare lounge section of Rollymons Discord, and basically what that's going to allow you to do is find people that are really interested in getting a certain item, or if there's any discussion on a specific rare that may rise or lower in the future, so you can get a good idea of how rares are actually valued. Since Rollymons doesn't really update rares that often, so watching the rare lounge is a good way to figure out how much those rares are actually worth. For example, there's a rare that I actually own called RFHS, and basically that item can be raised to 45k pretty soon here, as it has a lot of proofs, and the only way that I would really know that is because I go to the rare lounge discussion area and also to other rare item discussion discords, so that's kind of why it's important to keep an eye on that and make sure you know what your item's actually worth. The next tip that I have for you guys is to check your items for poisoning or for if they're projected. There's a very easy way to do this. It's not a very hard tip. Basically, all you're going to need to do is go over to Rollymons and look at the item more specifically. Look if it has the projected flag, which basically just means that the item is not worth what its current wrap is at. So you can figure out what items you want to go ahead and avoid when people are sending them around. The other important thing to do is look for poisoned items, which are basically where the item was stolen from an account and the item is poisoned because if you own the item at some point, your account could be at risk of getting deleted. So it's important to look for items that could be poisoned because of that reason. The way to figure out if an item is poisoned is to go to the user's profile on Rollymons if they have the item, check the item and its UAID and who the item was traded between in the recent few hours or so, and see if that item was taken from a scammed account or from a hacked account, and that's how you know if the item could be poisoned. Sometimes it's also good to check the person's graph and see if their graph just recently had a huge spike in value, but do keep in mind sometimes there's other reasons why someone's graph could spike really rapidly. For example, my graph actually spikes really rapidly pretty recently here, but that's actually because I've had items on other accounts that I've transferred over to my main account, and if you look back at my graph a long way, you can see that my account used to be worth a lot, and that's kind of when I traded off the items. And finally, the number one tip, or the last tip, is basically demand trading versus rare trading. So this is kind of just two very vastly different forms of trading that you can do on Roblox. Demand trading is basically where you take items that have very high demand that a lot of people want, and you trade those very rapidly and very frequently for downgrades and upgrades, like I said at the beginning of the video, and basically just try to get as much value out of that as you possibly can by basically abusing the amount of demand that the items have. And then for rare trading, this is a lot different. This is going to require you to put a lot of research into items and really try to invest in certain items that are going to rise in the future, because rares don't move as fast as demand items do. So you can kind of find a balance between some rares and some demand items and figure out which ones are going to be really good to trade, which ones get good overpays, and which ones you can trade rapidly. That's kind of a very generic way to sum it up, but I will be making a video in the future about demand trading versus rare trading and kind of the intricacies of it. But as a general sense, just figure out the differences between them, because there's a lot of intricacies that I'm not going to be able to do in this one video, and basically learn about how you can balance rares and demand items in your inventory, figure out which ones are good to have, and then hold on to those. So hopefully those tips at least get you started on trading. I'm going to be making more videos, obviously, because I don't want to take too much of your time in one video, so I will be making more in the future about these different concepts and these ideas. So stay tuned, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like that. Like this video if it helped you at all into getting just your feet wet in the trading world, and be sure to check out more of my videos in the future. See you next time. Peace.